It's the Taylor Report, and it is CIUT 89.5 FM, and we're proud to be talking today with the former Prime Minister of Rwanda, Faustin Twagiramungu. Prime Minister Twagiramungu, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor.
We're very glad to be talking to you today because there's a week or two ago now, Koffi Anan, who had been for many years was the Secretary General of the United Nations. He had a significant role to play in the crisis and tragedy and ugliness that happened in Rwanda in the years 1990 to 1994, but very particularly in the year 1994. And you lived through that as a political leader and then later as a prime minister. And I know that, and I want our listeners to know that you do have a Twitter account, and I urge people, Faustin Twagiramungu, go to that because you have been following things closely, I note. And you had some thoughts, questions about, at the time of his death, I think you noted that he must have had he had a lot of information, and I guess we could use the word secrets that he did not share. So that was my starting point. What are your thoughts about the role of Koffi Anan in the matter of Rwanda?
Well, Koffi Anan, in the first place, I think I have to explain to your listeners that Mr. Koffi Anan is an African. The entire world expected of him to be having a knowledge, entire knowledge, of what is the African continent and what would be the result to decisions he would probably have wished to take as far as Rwanda was concerned. Mm-hmm. He did not do that. From 1990, when RPF, it means Rwandan Patriotic Front, attacked my country in October 1st, 1990, we started with a lot of political problems of killing people in different areas. People were killed by the RPF, until such a period that we decided that we have to negotiate with the attackers. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, on the 6th of April, 94 rather, mm-hmm. the president of Rwanda was killed. At that time, Mr. Koffi Anan was Deputy Secretary General of United Nations in charge of peacekeeping forces worldwide. So, of course, he has also been in a position to send, I will call them blue helmet to Rwanda. And unfortunately, in 1994, at that particular date of the 6th of April 1994, two presidents were assassinated by RPF.
Yes.
The president of Rwanda and the president of Burundi. Instead of to make sure that the situation does not become a chaos, they rather favor the RPF to continue killing my compatriots, mm-hmm. the Rwandan citizens. And Mr. Koffi Anan failed to influence the United Nations, and particularly the Security Council, to increase the peacekeeping forces to prevent the genocide from taking place. Instead, they withdraw the soldiers who were in Rwanda, I mean the United Nations soldiers, they were authorized to leave Rwanda and maintain the situation of chaos, which led us to the genocide, meaning Rwandan genocide indeed, because all Rwandans, Hutus and Tutsis, were killed. That's one. Second, in 1997, you have to remember that Mr. Koffi Anan was elected as Secretary General of the UN. And in 1997, RPF attacked the refugees in Congo. And they went on killing refugees until even they reached Kinshasa, the capital of Congo, where they have established their own government. Mr. Kabarebe, who is today the Minister of Defense in Rwanda, became Chief of Staff of the Congolese Army. Just imagine. So, for me, he failed to prevent the genocide in Rwanda or to influence the United Nations to stop the genocide in Rwanda. And he influenced the killing of refugees in the Congo bushes and the forests and kind of tropical bush until Kagame managed to take the Congo country as his own property. So, therefore, I cannot, frankly, in my own position today, as a former Prime Minister of Rwanda, a witness of what has happened in my country, tell to the world that Mr. Koffi Anan has rendered or has given or tried to influence the United Nations to find a solution to what has happened in Central Africa, meaning Congo, Rwanda, and particularly other countries surrounding Rwanda like Burundi. So, for me, I think that he failed, and there's no way I can pretend to appreciate the job he has done. And then it is not only that. You will also have to remember that in 1995, there has been a genocide in a place called Kibeho. Kibeho is in the southern part of Rwanda. This was on 21st of April 1995. RPF killed more than 80,000 displaced people who came from the north of Rwanda and they were put in a camp near the border of Burundi in the southern part of Rwanda. And Kagame decided to simply go into that camp and kill people to make them free. He killed more than 80,000.
Yes,
I was there.
I want to mention
it's incredible that the decision taken by the United Nations, while Mr. Koffi Anan was also peacekeeping forces, was to simply keep silence. No condemnation whatsoever of these killings. Let me finish this.
Sure.
I know, and you know too, that in Srebrenica, Srebrenica was in, let me call, where Mr. Milosevic was president.
Yes, of Yugoslavia, yes.
You remember what is the country? In any case, 6,000 Muslims were killed there by the troops by the troops of Milosevic. The United Nations decided to call it a genocide. The United Nations refused to call genocide 8,000 refugees killed in southern part of Rwanda by RPF army under the order of Mr. Kagame. And Mr. Koffi Anan did not say anything at all. Mr. Boutros also had his own problems. The Americans did not like him. They used to call him French, and he was replaced in 2001 by Mr. Koffi Anan. So it went on and on and on until people were killed in Congo. It went on until Mr. Kagame simply organized his power in Rwanda, while he was kind of a chosen leader of the whole part of Central Africa, trying to go to Burundi to kill people, killing people in Congo, what they call the Democratic Republic of Congo, and of course keeping on killing people in Rwanda, assassinated some leaders like Mr. Shonga and many others in our country. And we were afraid to leave the government and to settle now in Belgium, So the silence and the complicity of the United Nations through Mr. Koffi Anan is real. I don't invent anything. Yeah. I think I have to stop here.
We're speaking to the former Prime Minister of Rwanda, Faustin Twagiramungu, and you noted the date. Your dear colleague, Mr. Sendashonga, it was his voice and yours who began to speak to the power of the army, and it led to his assassination in Kenya, and you yourself had to leave the country for fear of your life. Am I right?
Of course, yes. Yes. And unfortunately, I will have to tell to your listeners who was Mr. Sendashonga. Mr. Sendashonga was formerly Minister of Interior, starting from 1994, just after the genocide. We were, government together from the 17th of July until both of us resigned on the 28th of August 1995. So he went back to Kenya where he was working before, and he was assassinated there on 18th, 1998.
Yes,
but
sir.
before he had been attacked by the assassins.
That's right. People forget they'd actually already wounded him previously. Yes.
And
Colonel Azindi had been murdered.
Yes. I think you are very well informed, yes. So just imagine. And yet nothing has happened. There's no investigation about his death, but everybody will tell you he was killed by Kagame. Yes, Kagame was killing other people too. He killed Patrick Karegeya in South Africa. He tried to kill Mr. Faustin Nyamwasa. He's trying to kill other people in Rwanda. He tried to kill me here in Belgium. He tried to kill other people abroad. Mm-hmm. But what is astonishing, it's surprising us. The international community, so-called international community, I'm very sorry to say that,
yes,
has simply tried to convince the entire world that Mr. Kagame is the best world leader. I mean, one of the worst world leader, if not the best African leader, to keep in power. Mm-hmm. They don't care about crimes he has committed. Until, I have to underline this, to make Rwanda peacefully, they pretended to create an international tribunal, mm-hmm. which had the mission to judge all people involved in the genocide in Rwanda. Hutu and Tutsis. Mm-hmm. Only Hutus were tried by that tribunal. No member, no one soldier, no one political leader coming from RPF was tried by that tribunal. Just imagine.
Yes.
One way, not both ways of justice. And Mr. Koffi Anan When this tribunal was set up, was there. When he was elected Secretary General, he was there. When this decision of trying both sides was taken, he was there. He did not say anything. And I have to add this. I don't have to forget it. It was just 1994 in September. Mr. Koffi Anan came to my office. I was Prime Minister then. He said, you know, there's a gentleman called Gerson has made a report. I just come here to beg you not to accept that report. I asked why. No, I simply ask you, don't listen to him, because that report does not have to be published. I told him that I have already met Mr. Gerson, who came to my office, and he told me that about 3,000 to about 40,000 people were killed by RPF in the eastern part of Rwanda, a place called Kibungo, and the surrounding areas. Mm-hmm. So I was frankly surprised to the advice given to me by Mr. Koffi Anan. And indeed, it ended up by simply stopping the report. This report was not published. As many other reports on the killing of RPF in Rwanda was not published. As the assassination of President Habyarimana, no investigation has been made by United Nations. But remember, Mr. Aril was the Prime Minister, I think, in Lebanon. When Mr. Aril was killed, the international community was moved. And the United Nations took immediately the decision of making an investigation. But in my country, or in our region, 2 presidents have been assassinated by RPF. Yes. We know that. RPF knows it. And Kagame confirmed once on Hard Talk BBC interview that he has killed Habyarimana before Habyarimana killed him.
Yes, he said he's my enemy. I don't care.
Has been made. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine the situation in which we are today?
Yes.
A killer is in power. A killer is sanctified by the international community, being appreciated as the best leader in the region.
By Blair and Clinton.
Having a lot of prizes, being invited to the most important universities in the USA, Yale University, Harvard University, and many others. And of course, being entertained by some important Jewish organizations in New York. I think the man is a saint. Mm-hmm. The man is a killer, and the man has to be punished, and he has to be investigated. Yes. That is my own conclusion.
Well, and as many join you. And by the way, we have to, and I want to mention an author. I know you appreciate the book, the recent book written by Judy Rever, because she's a Montreal-based author. She worked for the French press for many years. She experienced the refugee crisis in Tingi with mainly Hutu refugees there who died in the thousands. Now, she's written a remarkable book. I'd like to know your thoughts about that book.
Well, this book has been the best book I have ever read about what happened in this area, I mean in the region, and particularly what happened in Rwanda. Some writers have been trying to do better than her, but they could not. I think she's the best. To have investigated a young lady, went to this tropical forest, he followed the refugees, he investigated in Rwanda, he investigated in different countries where refugees were living, and he made a tremendous job. And his book, frankly, let me tell you that I haven't read any book who can tell the truth. Mm-hmm. So he revealed the untold story about what happened in Rwanda. But unfortunately today, I haven't seen any reaction to she has said, what she has written, you know. There are other writers, French mainly, like Mr. Payan. Mr. Payan has not been in Rwanda. He's the other one who told the truth about RPF. But unfortunately, his government did not react. Other international international organizations did not react. And no matter what will happen, the truth has been told, and nothing can tell that truth better than Judy Rever. This is what I say.
Well, yes, and she documented with very close research and interviews with people whom she produces with names, etc., who saw the killings in the Akagera, and she dealt with all the myths and legends. It's absolutely brilliant. I agree with you, Judy Rever. I hope people get the book. And now there's another detail I want to make sure I ask you about. A gentleman that you met, Mr. Philip Gurevich of the New Yorker magazine, who in my view has done a lot of harm because he's a great admirer of Paul Kagame and wrote books, a book largely lionizing him. He tells a story of the famous genocide facts. Actually, I should tell our listeners that the top of the facts sent by General Dallaire in January 1994 says a request for assistance in removing an informant from Rwanda, something which was totally impossible, totally outside his parameters of responsibility, etc. But at any rate, that fax is used as supposedly the indicator of what happened 6 months later, 3 months later. In telling the story, it begins with you, because he says, Gurevich says that a very important person, he uses the letters VIP, and he's quoting Dallaire, had come to Dallaire to say that there's an informant, and that he should he'll tell the story of what's going on. In my view, Gurevich is confusing people, because my understanding is that you did not meet this so-called informant, and neither did General Dallaire. Can you talk about the whole matter?
Well, I don't know what expression I would use in English, because I will simply say that Mr. Gurevich is not honest, because he knows once that he met me in the office. I told him the whole story. He did not mention anything in his book. It's the first book he published. Second, I did not meet that gentleman who pretended that he has told the real story about what happened to our country. What has been told to Mr. Dallaire by the gentleman I indicated to him has been put in the report. I think Mr. Dallaire, he sent to the United Nations. Here also I have to be precise. Mr. Dallaire did not really told me how the report, what was the content of the report. I don't remember, and I have not forgotten anything. It is true. Mr. Dallaire did never show me or give me a copy confidentially of what he has sent to the United Nations. Thirdly, we have discovered that the so-called informer was simply a gentleman from RPF, because his brother was once been a kind of mayor in Kigali after the so-called liberation of Rwanda by RPF. So this was the invented story. It was untrue. And Mr. Gurevich wants to use it to convince the international community, all the world, that his first book was correct. Probably was correct to some issues, but his book was read just after the genocide, and everybody jumped to that book to think that what he is telling in it Mm-hmm. So I don't know if I have answered your question quite clearly, but I have not met the informer, and all the informer had given to Mr. Dallaire. But Dallaire himself discovered that the guns were not to make. They were insufficient to pretend to prepare genocide. Yes. Let me just stop here. In some cases, these kind of ideas, remembering them, they make me kind of frustrated, and I don't know what to tell.
Mm-hmm. Well, certainly, by the way, everyone knows that, Amadou Dem, the captain who did actually meet him, said that the kinds of arms they were talking about was rather common throughout the city of Kigali, which people were being assassinated. And I believe you have addressed that as well, that the RPF at that time, between January and April, were assassinating people in the city of Kigali.
Yeah, they assassinated people, including some politicians. And we were, confused. We certainly must have said that they were assassinated by the Habyarimana regime. No, they were assassinated by RPF. I can give an example. Example of Mr. Gapisi, who was assassinated in 1993 by RPF. It is confirmed now. And the assassination of the Minister of Public Works, Mr. Katabazi, was assassinated by RPF. Mm-hmm. And many other people were assassinated by RPF.
Yes, and all parties were worried about their own security, of their people being safe when they travel about, for fear of having that happen to them.
Yes, because the RPF seems to have been allowed to be free, leaving the CND places, as we call it, where we have accepted that a battalion stayed in Kigali, RPF battalion stayed in Kigali. So they took civilians, clothes, they traveled all over Rwanda, killing people, and putting them on the opposition, or pretending that they have been killed by President Habyarimana. Let me mention this. It is very curious that UNAMIR was there to ensure security, and I don't see any security ensured by UNAMIR. I'm very sorry to say that, because police and some army officers were prevented to work freely with their arms, light arms. But RPF was allowed to have their arms and going around killing Rwandans. So it is a pity. The situation we were in, it was really abnormal. While we were under the umbrella of the United Nations, we did not know that all those crimes could be committed until our president is assassinated, and until the time the genocide broke out. It's a very sad story. As Rwandans, we have suffered a lot, and we continue to suffer by keeping such kind of a killer man, a killer personality as leader of our country. Yes. We have no consolation at all, particularly in a very simple analysis of what has happened. The entire world will simply say Tutsi genocide took place in Rwanda, as if there have not been Hutus who were killed. While the international tribunal, which could have made it, would have clarified the situation, kept silence as far as Hutu were concerned, and tried to please RPF and to offer RPF a kind of world authority as far as the Rwandan situation is concerned. That is just incredible. So we shall continue our fight to tell the truth in the future, those who are going to read what has happened in Rwanda will be astonished how our people have been betrayed by the international community, including one of the African highest diplomat and decision maker, like Mr. Koffi Anan, who, unfortunately, I have to repeat, were chosen to be a prize Nobel winner. That's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
So, I can't tell all what I have in my heart,
mm-hmm.
but I think I have said what I could tell you by answering your question.
Yeah. Well, certainly, Mr. Prime Minister, you've done that, and we are very, very grateful. And I'm very glad you have a Twitter account. I find it extremely interesting. I urge people to follow you. And thank you very, very much for talking to us today.
Thank you very much, Mr. Teller.
Okay. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. This